There are four major reasons why major system implementations fail. All right. So, number one is governance and resourcing. So, the problem is that most organizations don't line up enough resources to help with the implementation. They rely on business stakeholders to be major drivers. But all of these business stakeholders have a day job, right? So resources become extremely constrained. They overestimate timeframes, even though everybody still has a full-time job. And that leads to a number of delays, a number of difficulties accurately resourcing the project. All of these things happen because the resourcing and governance doesn't happen the way that it should, right? So that's reason number one. Reason number two is process standardization or process scoping, right? Most systems are process driven, right? They have workflows and you have to make configuration and customization decisions about those workflows. Most organizations commit to a system before they've thought a lot about what they want their future state processes to be. And so then when they get to a point of making decisions on configuration and customization, they're not really ready to make those decisions and they run into delays trying to figure out which way they want it to be, how do they want to configure it, how do they want to do any of that stuff, right? So it doesn't really effectively work. The third reason that major system implementations fail is because there is no data strategy, right? Systems, we talked about workflows, process-driven a moment ago, they're also data-driven, right? There's a series of tables in the schema on the back end of the system. That combined with the workflows is what really drives how the system works, right? The problem is that if you want to have historical continuity, there's going to be a lot of data mapping and data migration activities that have to take place from your old system to the new system. But having a normalized data model, understanding your master data strategy, maybe building a master data model where you capture the core entities that matter to your organization, those aren't usually activities that organizations do in preparation for a new system. And so then that leads to further challenges in trying to do all of the data mapping and the data migration effectively. Again, another major point where you run into delays, where you have major problems, where you run into additional cost. And then the fourth driver or the fourth major reason that large system implementations fail is change management, right? You're trying to substantially change the behavior of business stakeholders. So you have to manage that change effectively. What usually happens is you have like this big kickoff meeting where you get everybody excited. And then most business stakeholders who are actively working on the project won't hear anything about it for like a year, right? And then you'll come back around in a year and you'll be like, oh, hey, remember this thing that we're doing that just kind of seemed like it was in the background of all your work? Well, now we're ready to use it. Here, come test it. And they didn't have a say in how it was configured. They didn't have a say in the workflows. They're going to jump into it. And most of them are just going to think about how different it is from how they currently do their job. They're not going to like it. There's going to be a lot of pushback. It's going to cause more delays, more compromises because they weren't kind of brought along throughout the entire process. That change wasn't handled effectively, right? So to recap, the major reasons that you have failed major system implementations, governance and resourcing, right? Not getting enough resourcing, not effectively governing and planning resourcing. Process standardization, not planning out the processes, not doing the documentation and the legwork necessary to make customization and configuration decisions appropriately. Your data strategy, not having a master data strategy, not planning for and or doing or normalizing your data in preparation for data migrations, and then your change management, not effectively incorporating business stakeholders to get the change management piece